Dive in Season 7 of Marvel Rivals is back in full force. It's been a couple of weeks now since the season came out, and I think we all can see that Dive is pretty much running rampant, not only in ranked, okay, not only in ranked, but also in pro play. However, I will say on that topic of pro play, Dive has been better in pro play than in ranked for a while now, not just Season 7. There has, because if you look at the actual changes, right? And this is the really interesting thing about this dive meta, right? Is if you look at the balance changes, it would make you think, why is there a dive meta? Daredevil got nerfed. Captain America got nerfed. Venom, I don't think, got any changes. Spider-Man didn't get any changes. Magic just got a change to her hitbox. A lot of people were saying it was actually a nerf. A lot of people were saying, oh, the good Magic players don't miss their dashes anyways. Psylocke wasn't very good. And her buff was kind of mediocre. But suddenly we're seeing Psylocke a lot now, and she's quite meta. And full dive is kind of running wild with it taking over a lot of different lobbies. And it really begs the question, it's a very deep question for the player base in the game, because the real reason we're in a dive meta is triple bans. And the really interesting thing about that is with 3 bans, it works both ways. This 3 bans is not like a dive enabler. It's also a poke enabler or a brawl enabler. It does allow your team to ban whatever the hell you want. Yet we have a dive meta where Daredevil was nerfed, Captain America was. There wasn't really any major changes in a positive direction for dive. You could talk about the ult charge changes, right? Sure. Okay, you got me there. The ult charge changes were pretty good for dive. But I don't think that alone would have led to the level of dive that we're seeing this season across most ranks of the game. I think this topic runs a lot deeper into what most players want to play deep down. And we see it with the bans. Because if players wanted to play more Hela, Hawkeye, Namor, Phoenix, they wanted poke every game, they could just ban like Daredevil and Spider-Man. If you were to ban those 2 heroes, Dive has no chance of surviving that game. Like, realistically, those are the 2 best divers. If you ban out Daredevil and Spider-Man, the enemy team cannot run dive. They cannot realistically run a good dive comp, okay? But players aren't really doing that. We're seeing some Daredevil bans, we're seeing some Spider-Man bans, but it's not that common. It's not as common as you think it would be to shut down dive, right? And it's very rare as well to see Spider-Man and Daredevil bans together. However, it is not rare at all to see all the poke heroes or all the anti-dive supports banned together. In fact, it's not rare at all to see both teams doing that. One team banning Loki, Cloak, and Gambit. The other team one team banning Gambit, Cloak, and Hela or Elsa, and the other team banning Hela, Phoenix, and something else that's anti-dive, you know? It's not common at all for both teams to be doing this, not just one team. And it really reaches to the deeper topic of what the hell players want to play versus what they feel like they have to play. Sure, okay, I know, I'm not saying that people don't enjoy Hela or Phoenix or Bucky or Hawkeye or all these heroes. I'm not saying there aren't players that enjoy them. What I am saying is I do firmly believe there is a smaller percentage of players that actually want to play poke and that want to play those heroes than dive. And I think this season proves that because of the bans. Because if players wanted to play more poke, they can just ban divers. Yet we're not really seeing that. We're seeing Psylocke players banning Loki. We're seeing Spider-Man players banning Cloak. Daredevil players banning Cloak. Gambit, Elsa, Hela, Phoenix. We're seeing these bans over and over and over and over. Is this healthy for the game? Now, if you're a support player, maybe in some way it could make the season more fun because the main supports are being banned, so you're allowed to play Jeff Rocket. You're allowed to play like the new supports, like White Fox. You're allowed to play these weird supports. So from that perspective, it could be kind of fun. But from the other perspective of you're facing dive like every game now, well, I wouldn't say every game, but very commonly. It really depends, because if you're playing White Fox, like if you're a support player, I think there was no better. If NetEase did not bring White Fox into the game this season, everything would look very different right now. Supports would be crying a lot, because White Fox, like, it's in a way, it lets you be a part of that game. If both teams are running full dive and you're on Invis or you're on Luna, you feel like you're helpless in a way. Invis might not be that helpless, but you compared to White Fox, you feel a little bit helpless, okay, compared to White Fox. But if you're playing White Fox as support when both teams are running dive, you feel a lot more like you're a part of this. You could choose to dive with your team and abandon the idea of having a backline, because you're going to be dove anyways. Or you could be anti-dive yourself and fend off the divers. You can, like, be more actively a part of that game. And so from that perspective, it's not as bad if you're a support player, because you could just pick up White Fox. But is this healthy for the game as a whole? I honestly do not know, because players are the ones that are choosing this for themselves. They are the ones that are choosing this. And there's no way for NetEase to stop it, because unless they want to compensate for the player's choice by overly nerfing dive to where players can't, like, it's that bad to where you can't even ban the right things and play dive. That's the only way I think NetEase can solve it. Or they could, like, buff poke again. But the problem is I don't actually think dive is that overpowered. I just think it's because of the bans, and we're seeing it. Literally, the moment we get 3 bans, they're banning all the things that dive is not good into. And so I don't think it's a matter of buffing poke. Like, if I see a Hella buff next season, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed. Because Hella's still a great hero. Like, she's like A tier. Sure, she's not S tier, but she's A tier. Phoenix is still S tier, okay? They could give Hawkeye not more damage on his arrows, maybe a little bit more ability to survive against dive. Like, I know people are tired of overshield, but, like, some overshield when he uses his sword slash, because, like, Hawkeyes are, like, non-existent right now. There are a lot of changes NetEase can do to kind of even the scales, but it's certainly an interesting topic when it's the players are the ones that are choosing to run dive. And I think the root of the problem here is actually that dive heroes are just more fun. And this is not, like, my opinion, because the players are choosing this. So this is what players feel, right? This is not me saying I think dive heroes are more fun. On average, players on average think dive heroes are more fun because they're choosing to play dive. They're choosing to play dive more than they're choosing to play anything else in the game. And it's not because it's better. It's because you're banning out what makes you not good, which then makes it better. And how can NetEase really solve that? I don't think they can. If dive heroes are just more fun, what other way do you solve this besides making poke heroes that are fun? Making poke heroes that aren't just point and click. And I know, like, maybe that sounds ironic because I said a poke hero that's not just point and click. Maybe that sounds kind of paradoxical, but I'm sure they could do it, okay? I'm sure they could have heroes that have more interesting kits that are poke heroes. And I think a good example is, like, the evolution of Phoenix from Hella. I think a lot of players enjoy Phoenix more than they enjoy Hella, because Hella is very much stand, point, and click. Phoenix has a little bit more oomph to her, and to her, like, the way you play her, with the movement, the teleports, the sparks. Even the ult can be comboed. It adds a lot more, like, things you can do with the hero. And I think there is a way they can introduce more, like, shooter heroes that have more interesting mechanics and stuff to them. I think Elsa was a fantastic example of what I'm talking about. Elsa's broken and she's overtuned. Okay, let's get that out of the way. She's broken and she's overtuned. I'm not discussing the balance of Elsa. I'm discussing the design of Elsa. Elsa is a perfect example of how they can add more poke heroes to the game that could make a dive player who's interested in dive because of the hero being really interesting. Okay, being really interesting. They will now play a hero that has a gun and plays at range on average. Okay, Elsa's a little bit less poke. She's kind of brawly. She's not, like, super long range poke, but I think her other gun has really long range damage, like the elephant gun. That one's quite good at distance. Elsa is a perfect example. She's really fun to the point where me, a melee enjoyer, I tried her for the first couple of days and I thought, wow, this is fun. This is actually fun. It wasn't fully up my alley, but I actually thought she was really fun. She's designed really interesting. Her mechanics are cool. You feel when you're playing the hero, you feel like you're in the hero fantasy of the hunter. With the trap and the dashes. I think the frequent dashes are kind of okay for this hero. The problem is just the overhealth she gets on it. But again, that's balance discussion. We can talk about balance all day on Elsa. But looking at just the kit, they really did nail it. And I think this, going forward, for them to introduce more like gun or ranged heroes like that is what the game needs. Because I do think the biggest reason we have a dive season right now that's so one-sided is simply because there is a higher amount of interesting and fun dive heroes than there is interesting and fun poke heroes. And I do think this is quite easily solvable. It's just a matter of how long it will take, because it looks like Black Cat is going to be a melee hero, not really a ranged hero. And so if it's another dive meta, I'm just scared NetEase is going to nerf dive as a way to say, okay, now you can only play dive if you ban right, because then it's going to like overcompensate, because dive isn't actually that good in ranked. It's just because they're banning all the things that make it bad. Like Psylocke is like hard countered by Loki, like hard countered. But you just ban it. Like, it's so easy to ban it. Everyone's on board with the Loki ban. Like, everyone's just on board with it, because like Loki is a good ban, because if they play like Cloak, no one wants to face Cloak Loki. So like Psylocke can get Psylocke. If you're playing Psylocke, I'd be very surprised if you went a game without being able to get a Loki ban through. I would be genuinely surprised. Actually surprised. So if you're playing Psylocke, you never have to worry about that like ever again. If it's 2 bans, you do. Why? Because the first ban has to be Gambit or Elsa. We can talk about Gambit bans being overrated. That's a whole other discussion. But at least for now, people are still banning it. Even if you think he's balanced, okay, that's a different discussion. People are still banning it. There are just higher priority bans over Loki, and so it's a lot harder to get that ban through. But now Psylocke is just amazing, because a little bit of a buff plus Loki bans every game. Anyways, guys, that's all for today's video. I wanted to give my thoughts on why dive is so strong, and I don't really think it's too much a matter of balancing. I'm a bit worried they might go and just nerf all the dive, thinking it's actually dive that's really strong, and then dive is going to be so terrible because they didn't understand why everyone's playing dive. That's all for today's video, guys. If you liked it, please remember to subscribe and turn the bell for notifications so you can see when my videos are. As always, guys, take care.